to another series of Workspace Meet. Today I'm joined by Kay Sargent, Senior Principal Director of WorkPlace at HOK. Hi Kay, it's lovely to have you.
It's great to be here. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. How's everything over in America?
It's good. We had a hurricane come through yesterday, but I think we're all good.
What would you say that you would imagine to be the next big change in workplace design? Because I know that a lot of American companies are all still working from home. Are they seeing the benefits of it? Are they thinking office is needed? What's happening with that?
Great question. And there could be multiple different answers depending on the type of company that you are and where you're located. So first of all, I say that I think it's going to be a rough 18 months because I think a lot of companies are going to have a knee-jerk reaction. And I think some companies already have, and they've now realized that we're in the middle of this, it's still evolving, and it may not resolve itself as easily as some people originally thought. So I think people are taking a more cautious approach to this. But what we're seeing now is, quite frankly, a lot of what we've been predicting for a long time. And I would say that we believe that we're at a critical point here where we can either go backwards to 1970 and have a panicked reaction, or we can take a moment and realize that we are given an opportunity to rethink everything. And I think the smart money and the smart companies that have the courage are really realizing that we don't want to go back to the old office because there were things that weren't working before. So not only do we need to address the new issues that COVID has presented, we have an opportunity to address burnout, lack of work-life balance, the fact, the commute, climate change, all these things that we probably weren't holistically really addressing before. And even the inclusion of technology and how we can do so much more. So I think going forward, what companies need to do is really think about the purpose of place. Why would I want to work from home? Why might I work at a hub? Why might I work at a satellite office? And what is the benefit? And I don't think it's a one solution. I think it's a combination of those. And companies that are saying everybody's going to work from home or everybody has to come back, I think that's the wrong approach. I think we're getting to a point where we need to create an ecosystem of spaces, have a powerful reason to be at each, and then make it a real true destination. If you want to stay home and focus and concentrate, great. When you're coming to the office, it's going to be this amazing experience, smart workstations, tech-enabled, really about collaboration and bringing people together. So the purpose of place and embracing these things that we've had for a long time, I think is really where we're going to be heading going forward.
Okay, that's really interesting. And you said quite a bit about investments then. Do you think that obviously having an office is costly, as you're going to say, all the smart tech that's going to be coming in, all the furniture, the upkeep, the facilities maintenance, everything. Do you think it's worth the investment?
So I'm going to say this. I think the answer is yes, I do. And I think the reason that it's worth the investment, I think a lot of people are finding this out now after being at home for 4 or 5 months, is we miss each other. Like, we're social creatures. We want to be together. And people have said, wow, we've been really productive while we've been home. Well, your email box might be empty, your inbox, but have you really collaborated? Have you mentored? Have you matured your culture? Have you ideated? There are things that we cannot do as well when we are apart. And so I think people are realizing that it's important to be together. And there are some people that just really cannot function at home. And there's some people that don't want to. And there's some people that their housing situation doesn't allow them to. So I think it's important that we do create offices. And I think one of the biggest misunderstandings out there is everybody talks about how expensive office space is. And it's not cheap. I'm not going to say that it's cheap. However, 80% of a company's money goes to their people. 80%. 10% goes to the real estate and 10% goes to IT. Real estate in that perspective is cheap. And if I do anything to negatively impact the ability of my people to be productive, then it doesn't matter. And I think what we're going to see is people may I think we're gonna see real estate shift. There's a lot of people that are saying they think it will be less. Some people are actually saying they think it's gonna be more because of social distance. But I'm gonna say that we believe that it will balance out. And what will likely happen is maybe more people will be working from home, but you won't have as much densification. So that might equal out, and you might have the same amount of space. You might just use it differently, or you might distribute it differently. And I think what we're going to see are smarter, better workplaces. You may not have as many work points, but they're going to be smarter, better ones that enable touch-free, voice activation, things like that, where we can really leverage technology. Because again, if I'm going to the office to have the same experience I could have at home, why am I going to the office? It has to be a better or a different experience.
Yeah. And I also think people want to feel safe. They want to feel,
Absolutely.
In a way, and like it's a nice environment to go to work in. Yeah.
Well, and perception, I think is the reality here. Quite frankly, I think preparing the office for people is going to be one of the easiest things that we're going to do. Preparing, getting to the office for a lot of people is going to be a far bigger challenge. If you survive that, kudos to you. And then I think the human factor is a huge issue. There are some people that are very cavalier and aren't worried about this. There are other people that are totally freaked out and are very nervous about this. And so dealing with those social dynamics, I think, is really going to be one of the biggest challenges that we're going to have to deal with going forward. But safety of employees is absolutely, I think, the number one concern. And over the last several years, we've done a tremendous amount of research into neurodiversity. Now, people that are neurodivergent, ADHD, on the spectrum for autism, Tourette's, dyslexia, they tend to have heightened sensitivities. They either tend to be hyposensitive or hypersensitive. We are now living in a world where everybody has a heightened sensitivity, right? Like, we're all now worried about how close we stand to people, or what is it we're touching, or what does that smell, and what's in the air. Exactly, right? So we all have this heightened sensitivity, and all that research that we've been doing, we're really looking at how can we apply that to make people feel safer in the environment. It's like, even, it's just going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't feel safe, you can do nothing else. You can't achieve, you can't collaborate, you can't connect, you can't be productive. Number one basic survival instinct, the Savannah effect. I got to feel safe. And then there's this whole notion of prospect and refuge, where I want to be able to see what's coming on. I want to be able to suss out the danger that's around me. I mean, think about when you go to a grocery store and, we're all prospecting, right? You look down an aisle and you're like, oh, there's too many people in that aisle. I'll come back later. I'll go down there. We're going to be doing the same thing in the office. And it's going to change and impact the way that we design spaces to really enable people to feel safer.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So tell us a little bit then, how did you get into workplace design?
10 years old, I was drawing houseplants. Loved, ever since I was a kid, I loved drawing houses and plans. And when I was in high school, back in the 80s, I think it was 1980, I was a sophomore in high school or junior in high school, and I took a drafting class. I was the only girl in the entire class, but I loved it. And then just kind of, literally, I don't want to say dumbed into it, but I did, and I went to art school and interior design, and got into that, and have done it ever since, and I've always just really loved it, and it's kind of been my passion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the most actually being in the design industry, but actually workplace design, people don't realize how important it is. Like you said, for employee morale, employees to feel safe, it's so important, and yet what you do, amazing.
Yeah, and I would say that there absolutely is an art to what we do, and I think a lot of designers intuitively know the right thing to do, and a lot of people think they have a flair or a sense for design, right? But there is absolutely a science to what we do, and I don't think there's any decision that we make that is arbitrary. Whether it's color theory, materials, how we place things, the incorporation of different things, how we design space absolutely positively has an impact on the people. And I believe that truly with every bone in my body, that we have a huge impact. But I also believe, and boy, I'll tell you, doing all this research about neurodiversity has just driven this point home. If we can design spaces that have a positive impact on people, we can also design spaces that have a negative impact on people if we don't know what we're doing. And so, you can look at something. I'll give you a perfect example. All right. So one of the things is people that are hypersensitive. They might want to they have a hard time with distractions and they need to focus. So we've done a pretty good job of creating phone booths for people that need, heads down, quiet space that they can kind of pop into and get that solace. But a lot of designers or people, they don't want those to be boring, so they put bright colors or crazy patterns or things like that in there. So they're fun, nice spaces you want to be in. Well, that is totally contradictory to people that need to focus, limit distractions, and have a calming environment. You've literally just short-circuited those people, right? And so, that's part of understanding the science of what we're doing. It's not just an arbitrary decision. I would argue every decision we make can be tied back to some element or principle of design, and can be, once you understand those, the right solutions start to become self-evident.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's really difficult as well, because there's so many different personalities, and like you say, hyper in the workplace, that you have to please everyone, and it must be really, really difficult in doing so.
Well, okay, so I'm going to say something a little controversial, and I try not to say this to too many of my clients, but I do mean it, and I will say it to most of my clients that I, or that know me. You're not hiring me to do what you like. Mm-hmm. That's why you have a house. Go do whatever you like at your house. You are hiring me to create an environment that works for you, your company culture, the way your people work, your organizational DNA. Your personal opinion does not matter. My personal opinion does not matter. What matters is, what are we trying to achieve? What are your goals? And if I know those, then I'm going to pick the right color palette. I'm going to pick the right space type. I'm going to pick the right work styles. I'm going to pick the right concepts that will support and achieve those goals. And I will fight that to the end. And I also know who's paying the bills, right? So there is a time that, like, if you really tell me it's got to be this color, whatever, okay, but I'm going to tell you why. And I always tell my clients, at the end of any engagement, you're going to know more about design than you probably ever wanted to know, and I'm going to know more about your company than I probably ever wanted to know. That's how we're going to make the decisions, right? And it's not just, hey, I think this is cool, this looks great, and I hate. And all of everybody in our team knows this. The second somebody says, "Do you like this?" or "What do you like?" It's like I just was like, it's like it's not that it's not relevant. I mean, I want you to like the space that you're going into, but the most important thing is that it works for you, that it is achieving what you want it to achieve. That's what's important. Otherwise, you're not going to like it for long.
Yeah. Get bored of it very soon. But so tell us, what's been your favorite project you've worked on?
35 years of being a designer, and I've worked on a ton of really exciting projects. I've worked on multiple million square foot projects, but I think the projects that are the most really kind of stick with me are the ones that have a greater good. And when you're making a rich company richer and giving them nice space, it's nice and it's rewarding and it's fun. But when you can help people that really need to be, early on in the ADA, or Americans with Disability, or the Equality Act in the UK, I did a lot of projects for people with disabilities, and that made a huge difference in people's lives. After September 11th and after Oklahoma City, I worked on several security projects. I've done a lot of very high-level security projects. I've worked for every group, every branch of the federal government, even though they keep making up new ones, so it's hard to keep up. And after Hurricane Katrina devastated the city of New Orleans, spent the better part of 2 years down there. And I think those projects that have a higher calling, that are helping humanity, where you can truly see the impact that the design has on people's lives, basic survival, basic needs, are truly the ones that at the end of the day really rise to the top of being the ones that I'm most proud of.
Yeah, I can imagine. And hats off to you. That's incredible what you've done. Well done.
Well, 35 years, you get a lot of opportunities to do a lot of stuff. And I still have probably 10 years left, so we'll see. Ask me that question again in 10 years.
Well, thank you so much for today. It was so lovely getting to know you, how you got into your career, your projects, and what you think about the workplace design for the future. So thank you so much.
Well, Lucy, thank you for having me.